Welcome to Coming In Hot. Thank you, live from Airplay Beats for the intro music. We are recording live from Darling New Media Studios in Midtown Sac. All right, people. We're gonna take a little detour this week because it's May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and something that I kind of talked briefly about on this podcast, Coming In Hot, is my mental health and what brought me to finding help with my alcoholism, my drugs, and just being a better husband, a better father, a better employer. Something that is really taboo when I was growing up. I didn't hear about mental health. I didn't hear about therapist unless it was for a sports injury. But we got a very, very special guest that I'm going to be talking to today. He is the CEO, the founder of Cheat Code. He is the director of the Cheat Code Foundation, the concierge doctor to professional athletes. We got Dr. Armando González in the building. What's up, Doc?
Now, I need some intro music, too, after that intro, because I'm ready to run out the tunnel. Where do I run out? My gosh, man, you got me fired up. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get into it, man. And, like what I was talking about in the beginning, I'm from the hood.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
What hood are you from?
I'm from the Strawberry Manors, man, right outside of DPH.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So right off of Norwood and Silver Eagles, where I came from.
Grant High School or what?
No, I actually went to Mariloma. My family moved to Westgate, which was in the Rio Linda High School. My parents were okay with Grant. But when we moved to the Rio Linda High School district, it was like, we got to figure something out.
Like, yeah, so, we're going to audible at the line of scrimmage on that. Yeah, we're going to audible.
So I got an interdistrict transfer to go to Mariloma and Carmichael. And that's kind of where my drinking started, messing around in Carmichael.
Hey, that's where a lot of drinking starts in Carmichael. Yeah. It also starts in Del Paso Heights. Drinking doesn't discriminate, man. I love how you lead with that too, because I mean, just getting a chance to meet you, man. Like, it's funny. Like we talk about all these titles, and I'm sure when people introduce you, they introduce you with all these titles of all the success you've had and what you do. But it's like, at the end of the day, man, like, we're just people. And I know for me too, like, I've had my own struggles, even as a mental health doctor. Like, I've had my own struggles with mental health. I have my own struggles with substance and alcohol. Like, yeah, man, I'm right there with you. And I think that the climate of, what's good about a month like this, and why I appreciate you having me on, is that, we make space. But my hope is that, just like a lot of the months, including February, Black History Month, that eventually we talk about it enough to where we talk about it 12 months, not just 1 month of the year. Yes. And it just becomes part of the landscape of what we touch on all the time.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to talk about, because I believe over these last few years, especially with the Black History Month being the shortest month of them all, but just like you said, we're talking about it 12 months, and it comes from it comes from a sucky place, Doc, because there's black and brown folks out here being killed. And then that becomes the forefront of everything. It's like, we got it on camera. But in my neighborhood where I grew up, it happened almost every single day. And that takes a lot out of a person. So, growing up in that environment, and I'm not going to tell you that I was out in them streets, like my parents kept a close lid on me and my sister, and my cousins that I grew up with were very close knit. So we weren't out there gang banging and drug dealing and doing all this stuff. But when you're in that environment and you see that, and then you go to a place like Mariloma and Carmichael, and you start telling these cats, like, hey, this is what, and they think you like it from a rap video. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that's all they know. But when you're in the middle of that, it brings something out of you, and it messes with your head, because especially when you're talking to these people in Carmichael, they kind of look at you like you're lying, like, you know what I'm saying? Until you bring them to your neighborhood and they're like, oh shit, shit's real out here. So let's get into why you chose this profession for yourself. And I'm not talking about where you are now. I'm talking about, when you first got into, all right, you want to become a doctor. Did you always know you wanted to be in that therapist field, or it was just like you went to school and this is what captured your soul?
It's a great question, man. I think I take it back. I take it back all the time, because I feel like in order to really understand me, you have to understand where I'm from, like for most of us. And, so I was raised by a single parent mom, and my dad and her divorced when I was 3. My dad was from Mexico. He moved back to Mexico. My dad struggled with mental health. And so mental health is on my radar, not because I wanted it to, but it was on my radar from the minute I was born, because it affected my dad's ability to be in my life. And my dad, he coped like most people cope when you struggle with mental health struggles, including in Black and brown communities. He coped with alcohol, and that's how he self-medicated. And he did that. He went hard in the paint, man, because when he was barely even 50 and I was in high school, he passed away from cirrhosis. So he drank himself to death. And so I look at like the question of, did I know that I was called to this? Well, as a kid growing up, raised by a single parent mom, you spend a lot of time alone and with your friends, right? And the thing my life was organized around was sports. So the thing that I knew I wanted to do, or I thought I was going to do for certain, was be a sportscaster. I was hyped on that, all in on it. Started a show as a kid, working with the Kings, just kind of finessing things into existence. And that's what I wanted to do. But at my heart, I could tell you, man, even since I was like, I'll take it all the way back. Like, I was the kid that ran up to everyone and gave them a hug when I was like 3 years old. I just like, it's like love's my default. And there's been times in my life where maybe I got away a little bit from that, whether it's through the, being coached up in what it means to be a man or whatnot. But love's always been my default. Helping people has always been my default. So at a certain point early in my life, I pivoted. And I'm sure it had something to do with my dad's mental health struggles. I'm sure it had something to do with having a therapist in my life when I was 16, one of the only men that I would allow speak into my life, who was really there for me, where I just said, like, a light bulb went off and I was like, yo, I know that I'm meant to help people. And it wasn't like the first time I realized it, but it was the first time that I finally had to acknowledge that, was I fully stepping into helping people to the degree that I was called by being an entertainer or a sportscaster? I could try to sell myself a story that said yes, but the reality was I knew there was more. And so I just kind of started with, I need a backup plan. And that was the first time in my life I acknowledged anything other than the main thing, which was sportscasting. And I went back to school. I started at junior college, from Orange Coast College to Sierra College to Sac State. To be very real with you, I was at Sac State, but I really wasn't going to classes. And so I knew I wanted to be a therapist. I knew I wanted to help people, but I was convinced I couldn't go to grad school. So I just kind of mailed it in and spent more time partying than doing classes and whatever. Took a job in the regular world, and my soul was just crushed, man. I was like, there's got to be more to this. And so I went back and just I found a program I really wanted to get into. It was a tough program to get into. It was at Alliant International University, an accredited school of psychology. And I basically fought like crazy to get in, and I annoyed them. I bugged them. And finally, the dean said, look, on paper, you got no business being here, but it seems like you work hard at things you really like. And I said, look, this is it for me. I got to be here. I know now this is my purpose. And so he took a shot on me, and I told him, I won't let you down. And ended up changing my whole story. Went from being like a 2.6, 2.6, 2.7 GPA in undergrad, just not caring, to being like a 4.0 student in master's, 4.0 student in my doctorate pursuits. And just all along the way, as I started actually getting in front of people and learning how to really do what I've always been doing, which is just help people open up and make space for them to just share what's on their heart. And then when I learned like the techniques and the tools, I'm like, oh, like this is it. Now I'll pause and say this: the field that I entered into is not the field that I wanted to be in. So it was almost like I moved into a house and I was like, oh, do I own this thing? Like, we got to paint that wall. We got to change this, knock that wall down. So I've always been re-envisioning what the system should look like. And that's been the fun part is like, that's just what I'm going to do. And even now, like what I see in mental health is an opportunity for us, especially in today's day and age, to really rewrite the story on mental health. And, like you said, the company I have, the nonprofit, mental health's a cheat code to life. And you know what they want us to believe? They want us to believe it's for the weak, because if we buy into that and we don't ask for it, especially in underserved, non-served communities, then you and I and all those people growing up in those neighborhoods, we're essentially going to never get the resources we need to be able to actually step into our purpose and our calling. Because sometimes we need to heal first. Anyway, that's a long way of asking how I knew, but yeah, I always knew I needed to help people. And every day I'm more confirmed that what I'm doing today is what I'm called to do. And that's to help people and provide platforms to heal and step into their calling.
Yeah. So when, like you told us that you had to fight your way into your grad school, like what gave you that passion to go that hard for what you wanted to do? Because I did the same thing. I went to culinary school. I didn't go to any grad school, but I fucked off in culinary school. Like I was already, coming in from I was already 5 years into being in a restaurant cooking professionally. And when I got there, I was like, I don't need this shit.
Right. Exactly.
And, you go, and you skim by, you get that 2.0. And I didn't step up my game. I graduated, of course, but I didn't step up my game until I got out of culinary school and I started getting passed over by, people that I was training. And then I had to get into my head and be like, fuck this.
Right.
Like I'm going hard now.
Yeah.
What was that moment for you? All right. I'm at this 2.6 GPA. What clicked in your head? Was it, you wanted to help people that bad, or was it that dean saying that you aren't a right fit for this school? You shouldn't be here. Was that it? Or was it something else that happened?
Man, because I mean, I was, I was remarking to someone earlier this week how, man, I'm an open book. I don't really care. I'll tell it all. Like you're asking, so I'll tell it all. I never even told it all, but I'll tell it all to you. I mean, like right. the realness of it was that, first of all, I was raised on one principle. I was raised on a lot, love being the foundation of all, raised by a single parent mom who loved me unconditionally. She always would say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know how to do that. And she got that one right. The second part was she always said that to me, and still says to this day, what is the worst someone could say? No. What do you lose? Shoot your shot, basically. So I was always raised on that mentality. When the Maloofs moved to Sacramento, I was a 12-year-old kid that finessed my way down to talk to them and said, hey, I need to do an interview on my sports show with you because I represent Placer County, which is the largest county where you have most of your season ticket holders. They want to know about so I was always that, like, shoot the big shot. Why not? Like, what? Oh, you missed. What's it? But I think what you said too is pivotal in that, like, similar to you, I always had this, like, I'd walk in and I always would joke, because I'm like, maybe it's my dad's like hustler's mindset, but like I'd walk in and I always see the weaknesses, like, well, so if I don't do this, like I see the loopholes and most of my life. And I would just be like, oh, so I don't need to show up for that, which means I don't need to. And it's always like I was doing that. And that didn't stop until I really got to a point where, because I had done that with school, and because I was more serious about smoking weed than I was showing up to class, or more serious about partying and girls than I was, because of that, that's when I finally ended up in a job where I was like, cool, like I could smoke weed every single day and go to this job, but my soul is missing. It's like a sales job. Like I could sell. Sure. I'll sell, but not if I don't believe in it. You know, I was in, insurance and mortgage industry, like at a time when everyone was in insurance and mortgage industry. It was around 2006. And I hit my rock bottom moment. I was super depressed. And I was walking into the insurance shop every day looking around like I'm missing something, because somehow they're coming in and punching a clock and it's just not right. It's just not enough for me. So I think, some of it is that I'm pretty defiant, and I don't really necessarily need someone to tell me no. If you bet against me and my mind is made up that I'm going to do it, that's just kind of on you. That's always, it's not so much like you're my motivation. I'm gonna wake up every day thinking, I'm not letting you take up that much headspace. All I'm saying is when I know I'm doing something, I'm doing it. And I've always been that way. But pair that with a rock bottom moment of getting fired from an insurance job straight up because I just didn't care. Like literally telling, and then getting another job that was basically just another form of the insurance job. It was working. It was a good job, good money. But, in all realness, bro, the first time in my life where I was like, yo, this is the first time where like the dude put me on the spot. He asked me to take the job. And then he said, go take a piss test. And I was like, man, like I've always like finessed that. And I was like, I told myself I'm done with that. Like I was just done. You know what I'm saying? So I knew what was going to happen. I failed the test because like I said, I smoked a lot of weed, and like, and that became a moment for me where I was like, I had to hit that rock bottom of like, yo, like what you're doing right now, you have a degree. Great. You're working a day-to-day job. You don't love it. The only thing that you're really committed to is smoking weed. You're probably running from some things, which I was, in terms of my own like mental health struggles, of grief of losing my dad, stuff like that. So it really came to that moment of like, what are you going to do? So I was on unemployment until it just about ran out. And it was during that dark time that I said to myself, like, I believe in God a lot now. I didn't really believe in God much then. I remember saying like, yo, like, I want to go help people. I want to be a therapist. I got to get into school. I screwed that up. I don't know. Can you help me out here? And then once I started seeing, once that became a mind lock for me, it was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a problem for someone until they tell me yes. And that's just what I decided. So when he stood across from me and he said, Dr. Davis, who ended up becoming my mentor, who also became my boss, who became, to this day, someone that now I got to bring into cheat code, like nice. my whole lane changed. Yeah. But when I got to say to him, when he said to me, like, on paper, I'm like, finally, we're talking truth here. Like, yeah, I'm not, but I swear to you, look me in the eye, man. I swear to you that I will show up, because when my mind's made up, it was never made up before. I promise you that. You'll see. Again, it's that mind lock. It's like something about just that determination mixed with the why, mixed with the darkest moments. I think sometimes in life, it's like I was outrunning my calling. And I think sometimes we do that. We outrun our calling. And I think God just pulls back. It's like, all right, you want to sit in that for a minute. And then like, you just get tired and you're like, it stinks. This sucks. Like, okay, what? Like, what do you want to do? And then we finally give it and surrender.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. So cheat code. So you're in your private practice, right?
Yep.
What makes you go from, all right, I don't know how much you charge. I'm just going to throw it out there, $100 an hour. what makes you go, because I sit every Monday at 10 a.m. I sit in front of my computer with my therapist.
Love it, man.
And I after every time, and Lupe's great. Shout out Lupe over at Sparks down in Midtown.
You know Lupe's last name?
I don't think she'll want me to say it on here, but
well, you could say anyway. You tell me offline, because
I'll tell you offline.
If it's the Lupe I'm thinking about, I actually was a professor and I had a Lupe as a student that works in Midtown. It may be her. Anyway, keep going.
Okay,
that's awesome. That's awesome if it is.
Yeah, she's amazing. But after I get out of these sessions, every time I'm like, fuck, she has to go through this shit every fucking day for an hour, listening to people like me fucking cry about, like, and so what makes you go from that to, all right, I'm going to start this foundation, this cheat code foundation? Is it people like me telling bullshit stories?
Nah. Well, let's clear that up, man.
Yeah.
How do you, if I stepped in your world and I tried to do what you do, I'd probably last about an hour, like you probably last an hour in my job. Again, that goes back to like, we are a glove. Our hand fits one thing or multiple things, maybe not one thing, but we're called to do certain things. And when you step into your calling, the load is easy and there's joy to it. Like, I mean, I'm sure if I was interviewing you, I'd ask you all about your process and how you came up with, your concepts and your recipes and like all the things you love about what you do. And I bet if you talked about it long enough, you'd be like, bro, it's not even work. Like, I just love it. It's a passion. Like, I'm in a lane of just, so for me and probably for Lupe, there's just a certain way that, and believe me, it ain't a moral thing. It's not like, oh, I'm a better person because I could listen to more. No, it's just like, I don't know why, but I'm wired. I actually get energy after days where I do it for 7 or 8 hours. It's crazy, bro. I don't know. I don't understand why. I just do. Yeah. I also, after 7 or 8 hours, I feel like there've been days where I'll struggle going in to show up for someone and with my own stuff. And there's nothing more freeing and liberating than sitting across from someone and just like focusing not on yourself, but on someone else. So it's powerful, man. The whole thing with cheat code is just that, I talk a lot about calling, purpose. I'm a believer in God, mentioned that a couple of times already, but like I've obviously always dreamed big. And to me, the more that I just felt like I spent time spiritually on the question of like, God, what do you want from me? I felt like the answer was like, I want you to just really focus on the lost, the people that don't have a voice, be a voice for the voiceless, be a leader for the lost, like over and over. And I know that every time in my life where I've done that, talk about easy. Like when I love doing therapy, I'll do a session with anyone. Right. But when I go into prisons, when I go into, the streets and just people that are homeless, like, talk about next level ease. It's that for me. So with Cheat Code Foundation, there's always been this side of me of like, I'm in the system and I see every single day how broken the system is with mental health. And the people that need it the most, the people that need mental health support the most, they don't have access to it. And we could say it a lot of ways, but it's messed up. It's not right. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, I think I felt led a lot to a point in my life where if I'm going to have this access, in the last 2 years, start working with elite level athletes, Mookie Betts, Lindsey Vonn, Chris Godwin, Mallory Pugh, Dansby Swanson, D Gordon. Like when I started working with them and, God opened those doors, I'm kind of like, this is awesome because I put them in the same category that I put any of my clients. But the thing that's different is they have a huge platform. So I'm like, God, what are you doing here? Like, you want me to become some doctor that charges an absurd amount of money and goes around the country and flies away? I got a wife and kids at home. Like, what is all this? And I felt like really what was revealed to me in that was, no, give them the best experience you can give them. and then encourage them to be courageous enough to tell the world about it. That's the cheat code. Cheat code's goal is to end stigma around talking about mental health struggles, because we all go through them, primarily in Black and brown communities. But number two, finding a way to get access to the mental health cheat codes, the best of the best of the best of the best, the stuff I use with all those people I just named, get it in underserved, non-served communities that never have a shot. That's what the foundation's about. And to me, it's like, I couldn't be in good conscience if I wasn't doing that connecting of dots. So straight up, I've told everyone, I looked Mookie Betts in the face and I said, bro, I will work with you. I will go to the carpet with you. I'll show up. I'll fly out wherever you need me to be. But you have to, the only agreement is you have to agree to not only show up to do the work, but also to tell your story.
I like that.
And if you do that and you help me with your platform, shift and change the narrative in Black and brown communities around mental health, okay, then we got a deal. If not, it's all good, man. But I'm batting 1,000 because everyone I've said that to has said yes. It's been incredible. So they're willing to join this movement that we have to talk about the inequity, the inequality of mental health in this country, and to talk about also too the fact that it's rooted, like most things in our country, in a broken system, like most systems that are rooted in systemic oppression. And it's cheat code is as much about acknowledging that as also acknowledging there's a solve, and saying, if we could rally the right people with the resources and the voices and the platforms to do what's right, we have enough resources privately. We have enough to go do this work in underserved, non-served communities. And that's the mission of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, let's dig a little bit deeper, Doc, because when I grew up, there was a couple things that my pops always, this was just like, keep your problems to yourself, right? If a cop pulls you over 10-2, don't talk back, right?
Right.
And just keep it within the family. Don't fucking go outside of the family with any of your stuff. And that's something till this day that both of my parents, when they hear me on here, why are you giving up? Why are you saying this? Why are you doing that? Because this is like therapy to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like talking to people like you, talking to anybody and getting their story out and their truth out is why this is why I'm doing this podcast.
Love it.
Because I get a second therapy session on Monday.
There you
free.
go.
For free this time. Right?
This one's free 99. Charge it to the game.
Yeah. So when you're talking to these athletes, because I'm sure they had the same kind of keep it in the family, keep your shit to yourself.
Hell yeah.
And we're trained to bottle, to be men, right? To be strong Black and brown men. But we can't be strong if we're all fucked up in the head all the time.
Well,
right?
Well, 100%. I always go like, taken out of context, we all seem strange. It's a quote that I use a lot from Annie DeFranco, who's a poet and songwriter. And like, the reason I love that quote and I wear it out is because let's put things in context. It's a luxury and a privilege, not only to speak to someone that's a professional about your feelings. It's a luxury and privilege to be able to own your feelings out loud. So we start talking a lot about owning privilege, right? Owning racial privilege, owning white privilege, owning society, social class privilege, zip code privilege, you name it, right? What we don't also acknowledge is that just be able to say what you feel and like what you're going through, that's a privilege. So yes, it's a stereotype in a construction, social construction in Black and brown communities, but to me, it's more of an issue of class struggle. The majority of neighborhoods where you are surviving on a daily basis, in survival, if I was an animal in survival and I had a jacked up wing, I would naturally nurse that and hide that from you, because if you knew that, you're about to take me out, right? the same applies emotionally in Black and brown communities, because a lot of those communities are in survival mode 24/7. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like, and sometimes we get really hot on, you know, like Black and brown narratives around that, but let's put it in proper perspective. Like, that's a survival mechanism. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to acknowledge there too, like, that's why I say this stuff goes back to systemic oppression, right? Like, even those narratives go back to, like, how did we end up in communities, traditionally speaking or predominantly speaking, that are more under-resourced and underprivileged. Mm-hmm. And we go back to redlining. You got to acknowledge all that shit. It all matters.
Yes.
So it plays a role in how those narratives started and where they got framed from. Mm-hmm. So I think that what I try to do, I think sometimes is, and I'll go with some people, I go deep down the rabbit hole, like I'm going with you. Other people, I just say, look, let's think about where that stuff comes from. But once we put it in context, it makes so much more sense, man. Like, you know, a lot of the other thing, like, it was interesting. The number two thing you said was around, like, you know, obviously, like, how to interact with, you know, the police. And it's like,
at a very young age. I mean,
survival skills, though, right?
3, 4, 5.
If your dad
beat in my head,
if your dad didn't do that, he wasn't loving on you.
Yes.
In the same way with the first and the same way with the third. Because again, imagine if you are a member of a Black or brown family and you are not in a higher socioeconomic class, and you start doing the third one, which is speaking on some family business. Guess what? Now you get an oppressive system that you don't trust in your business. That's really where it comes from. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think, so first what I do is I would say to anyone I work with, let's honor this narrative. It works. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, it doesn't totally work. It's not totally ideal, but none of this shit's totally ideal. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important to start there and say that I think a lot of it comes down to trust, and again, the continual kick the can effects of systemic racism and oppression in our country. It's even tied into the narratives that we have in communities around speaking on our mental health. So I think when we start there, I have this really big belief that if we start framing mental health and putting it into this larger societal conversation of social justice and deconstructing the system, I think then we have a better shot at being compassionate to ourselves. Because then the translation goes, when I'm talking to an athlete who grew up in the hood, like, oh shit, like, that's right, man. Like, that's fucked up. Like, I couldn't have even said something if I wanted to, because partly because I'm Black and I'm breaking Black code. But on the other side, like, dude, like, that's a function of the oppressive system. Mm-hmm. You know, and if we want to protest systems, what do? The opposite.
Yes.
Which is to be vulnerable and say, I'm a man and I got feelings too. I'm a Black man. I'm a brown man. I got feelings too. Oh, and I go see my therapist. Oh, my mental health is the cheat code. Like, that to me is a protest of an oppressive system. They don't want us to do that. They don't want us to ask for better transformational mental health resources in communities, because if they did that in DPH and South Sac and all those other communities, mm-hmm. Do you understand that one by one what would happen if we had access to transformational mental health? Nah, man, we'd start flipping those neighborhoods. They don't want that. They don't want that.
No, they don't. And, you know, it started, you know, didn't start there, but, you know, it's just like, you know, the crack in the hood versus the pills in the majority white hood. You know, crack 20 years, you know, mental health or a therapist if you're popping pills, you know, and I feel that, you know, it's just an ongoing issue with us, you know, not being on everybody's minds, I guess, you know, and like, let's put these guys over here. Let's give them a controlled substance that, you know, will kill them off. But if they get caught with one crack rock, it's 20 years in jail. All right. White kid going to Rio Americano gets caught with a bunch of their parents' Oxycontin. Let's get them into therapy. What do you think about that, Doc?
I think that you're speaking truth. I don't know what else to say other than amen. Yeah. Again, that you're speaking on the elements and roots of systemic oppression and how they've been, you know, we say system, they've been in the system mm-hmm. from the get-go. And again, like we frame also the other thing element too is like 5% of clinicians 5% of therapists are Black in the whole field. That's crazy, right?
Wow.
So 5%. So here's the other thing too, is that, therapy traditionally has been seen and framed. When you think of a therapist, you traditionally think of an old white person on a couch in a knit sweater, or, sitting there taking notes, listening, but not really giving a whole lot. Not really. There's this narrative of disconnect already. And there's this narrative of like, how could we ever see ourselves in a system that isn't representative of us?
Yes.
And so, going back again to that, it's like, you talk about the natural recourses that happen in one zip code versus another in terms of selling crack versus selling cocaine or oxy or whatever it may be. We're also looking at too, that if that kid did get referred to therapy in both those communities for crack versus, oxy, in majority of cases, yeah, like the white neighborhoods are going to be like open to therapy a lot more than the kids growing up in the neighborhoods where they're like talking to someone that doesn't look like them, doesn't understand them, doesn't come from their background, isn't trained to even be curious and know how to approach that. Because, it wasn't until recently, and I say recent in the last 10 years, that even education in training of therapists really acknowledged cultural competency. It was just a diversity class. I got to teach it, and I was like, always like, this is crazy. Like, this should be the whole thing, right? Like, but it was one little class that you took, three units of your, hundreds of units that you took. It wasn't until recently that we started even acknowledging this, and again, like for listeners to your podcast, I think there is like, I know we're speaking a lot of truth, and sometimes truth is focusing on the problems. I'll just flip it real good, let you know that there's a lot of good that can happen. Like, that's what we're doing in our Cheat Code Foundation, is we're training BIPOC clinicians in underserved, non-served communities on the methods I use with the athletes I named earlier, so that they can go in and do transformational healing experiences with people in the community and continue to have a self-sustained economy of creating more opportunities for themselves, and not just train clinicians. If you want to go radical, I'll go all the way, Malcolm Little on you. And I'll tell you that going all the way on it, like, my militant belief is that the future of mental health eventually includes us going into underserved, non-served neighborhoods, getting money to where we can train the OGs on the stoop.
Yes.
Train the barbers, train the elders, train the I'm saying whoever's got the ear and the trust and has that natural gift and ability, we train them. We equip them. We don't put them through hundreds of thousands of dollars of a student loan racket. We just find a way to get a 12-week program and say, in 12 weeks, I'm going to make you cheat code certified. So you can go in and do transformational healing. In 12 weeks, I'm going to give you a path to making some decent money. In 12 weeks, I'm going to help you heal the neighborhood that you see every single day. That's the future. There's a lot of hope to be had in this conversation too.
That's a great idea. My goodness. The barber, hell yeah.
Right. They're already doing it. Just teach them how to do it a little bit more. Like,
exactly.
That's a probing question. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me do it. Come on, man. Like, barbers already, if you just did that, if you went to every hood and you said, who's got the best fade? You're essentially also asking who's got the ear of the community.
Yeah.
If you just gave me, if you could raise private money and I could just train them straight up, I would walk in. I'd say, I'll put them against the therapists that come out of UCLA when they go into South Central. Like, watch me. Let's see who does better. You know what I mean?
Man, great idea. So what's the Cheat Code Foundation doing to help with this stigma of, the therapy in the hood, or it's just anywhere, I know we're kind of pigeonholing the hood right now, but it's black folks everywhere too, and brown folks.
Definitely. But I think, the issue with the Cheat Code Foundation is just saying that whoever has the need should get it. That's what it comes down to. But by us saying and pigeonholing ghettos or black and brown folks, we're also just owning the truth that if you look predominantly at, who is disenfranchised the most in our society, it is black and brown folks, right? So we're just kind of, the story paints itself, essentially. It's not leading in that way. What we're trying to do is a couple things. Like, one is advocacy. And advocacy in today's day and age looks like, we do have some lobbyists on our squad that are helping us squad up to help understand, legislation that could pass or we could get involved with, get some more athletes involved with. That's more of a long-term play. To be real with you, I'm not really anchoring anything to anything public. I'm all about private. And what I mean is that like I want to really raise a lot of funds privately in this network that I've gotten myself into to try to like galvanize people and say, look, if I gave you a strategic plan, I'm telling you this 10 grand, this 100 grand could be better spent on lives in this way, training clinicians, training OGs and barbers, and actually then allowing them to go be an exponential healing force in the community than it could in most nonprofit situations. So advocacy for us looks like the boots on the ground advocacy is Instagram. So our Instagram channel is Cheat Code. We just launched it, and you'll get the vibe there. Like it's the target demographic is people that have been left out, the lost, right? So it's like, it's talking about mental health in a whole new kind of way. It's telling stories of BIPOC folks that went through the process, sharing their mental health stories. So we're ending stigma by doing that. And then we even mix in a few athletes because, sometimes, and musicians, and, we're adding more people constantly so that we can kind of get this vibe of like, this is the move for everyone. It's kind of like the first time that culture really meets mental health, and we make it something new. So there's advocacy and rebranding happening through our social media channel and primarily Instagram. We're getting ready to launch TikTok. Advocacy happening on the public side of things. But the real thing is this, like last 2 Thursday nights, I was put into a fundraising situation. So, which is new to me, but like I said, I could sell, especially for this, man, I'll sell all day long for the lost and the underserved and the non-served. So we went in to Morton's Steakhouse in Sacramento to a private room full of folks, and we raised $100,000 two Thursdays ago. That $100,000 allowed us to launch this beginning of May. We were acting on faith. We were going to launch it one way or another. We already had the cohort 15, and this is traditionally what we do in underserved communities. So in Sacramento, that $100,000 allowed us to train 15 BIPOC clinicians. This round is primarily, there's like 2 folks that are non-licensed members of the community, but most of them are licensed because we're doing data collection research to get grants and stuff. So we just want to like try to do it as conservative as possible at first. So we're doing it that way. They get trained in all the methods that I do with, the athletes. And then after they go through the training program, they almost have like an army-like commitment where they have agreed to see 5 people in underserved communities that we link them with as their give back for all the free training and education they're getting. The beauty of it is, so with 100 grand, what we're able to do is train 15, Black and brown predominantly clinicians, and we're able to give cheat code to 100 people in Del Paso Heights, South Sac. It's made 100 total, made up of that neighborhood. But it's a gift that keeps giving because those clinicians are going to still keep serving there. So that's what we did, a couple Thursdays ago. That's our boots on the ground mission in terms of what we're doing. We want to go take city by city. This past Thursday night, we were on a call with a lot of professional athletes. Lindsey Vaughn came on and helped do a fundraising portion. We raised some money, and she told her story. I had a guy named Fernando, who I take with me everywhere now, because former Norteño, and he came in and told his story about how he healed from all these traumas. He's living an amazing life right now. So we're going out there and we're like, look, give us some more funds. Let us be good fiduciaries. We'll go out and we'll find a way. And so we're challenging people now to continue to raise funds so we can go out, train and equip more leaders, allow them to go do the healing work in communities, leave communities better than we found them. And just that's the vision is, again, advocacy on the front end of the foundation. Back end of it is just old school, do the work, but train up people exponentially to go out and be agents of healing.
Yes. No, that's amazing. And I don't know how I could get involved with this, but I got that feeling. I got that butterflies in my stomach right now. So
listen to it and we'll follow up, man. I mean,
yes, definitely.
It's a movement. And I'm not gonna cheapen the word. Like, I've thought long and hard about even saying it out loud. I'm a student of the civil rights movement. I'm a student of a lot of movements. And the reason I call it a movement is because movements happen in response to a social problem that we get fed up with. And we say, it's just not right. It's just not right that the most traumatized members of society don't have access to transformational healing experiences. Mm-hmm. It's just not right. We got to do something about it. It's a movement. So for you, man, like everyone's got a role in this, you know, yours could end up being bigger than mine for all we know. The bottom line is we just have to listen to it, and we'll talk offline, and we'll find a way for you to get in support of this, or become a part of this, or get trained up in this, or whatever, man. Like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, another underserved community is the restaurant community. And, man, you know, we've been through a lot this last year and a half. And, you know, I've mentioned it on here before. There hasn't, you know, I know the government, if you watch TV, you know, loans and grants and all this stuff. But when you're out there and you're trying to survive, and you're a small business owner, or you're a mom and pop owner, and there's a lot of people that can't get on a computer, you know, like, it's a lot, you know, it's a lot to deal with. And, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones that, you know, I'm doing okay through this whole pandemic. But there was a lot of pivoting, which is the word of the year. And, you know, there's been a lot of, you know, growth inside of me and in my management staff, and even my, you know, my line cooks and my dishwashers. There's been a lot of sacrifice over this last year and a half that has taken a lot out of people. And that's when I was listening to you speak, I was like, you know what? I think there's a lot of help that could be done in the restaurant community, because it's splintered right now, man, you know, especially with these unemployment checks and these stimulus checks, which of course we all need it, but it's time for people to come back to work, and they ain't coming back to work.
Not the way the system is set up. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because they, you know, they're sitting back collecting this check, but also they're thinking about, why am I in this industry? This industry takes so much out of me.
Right.
You know, like, I don't need to go back. Yes. It's a service industry. There's no in this industry. There's always yes. You know what I mean? There's always yes. And how can I help you?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's always yes first. But who's saying yes to these people that need the help in the restaurant industry?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's you know, I know that I think it was, I don't know if it was Patrick Mulvaney, I believe it was, who set up a fund, because he lost, and I may need to get a fact check on this, but I know that a local restaurant, you know, owner who had multiple restaurants lost 3 or 4, I think it was 3 employees to suicide in a year, and did something in response to it. And that was before the pandemic. Yeah. You know, I shudder to think what's happening now. You know, again, like, it just goes back, we go back to like what's right and what's wrong. Like, it's crazy to me that we'd have to even advocate, you know, and I'm not even necessarily, I wouldn't say necessarily, I don't think I'm a socialist or anything like that, but I'm like, man, if it makes me a socialist to say that, like, everyone that needs someone to talk to or someone to let it out to, and that should be a basic human right, man, call me a socialist. Like, cause I'm sorry, bro. Like, that should be basic to me. And in every industry. And then again, like, then you get into like benefits and who has it and who doesn't. And it's a complex issue, but yeah, man, we need to talk more about how we could be a solve to it.
Yes, for sure. Hey, and Doc, we're at the end here, and I know we didn't have this on your rundown, but I know you have a great one for this segment of coming in hot. So this segment, you got to come in hot on any topic that you want, you know, just off the top of the dome, like 1-2 minutes. It could be 30 seconds of just any topic you want to come in hot on. So Dr. Mondo.
First of all, I thought you were gonna have me freestyle, but keep going. Sorry.
Hey, if you got 16, you got 16.
Hey,
you know, everybody should have 16 in their back pocket.
Can you turn me up in the headset real quick? Where's that beat at? No.
All right. So, Dr. Mondo, it is time to come in hot. What you got?
Should I just go with the first thing that came to my mind? Is that how this works?
First thing that comes to your mind.
What if I get in trouble for it though?
That's what we're here to do.
Okay. I've already told you about all my other stuff. My God, you've already got me to open up, you therapist, you.
A lot of years.
Look, man, I'm sorry, but I got to come in hot with this. Okay. I got to come in hot with this.
Okay.
Look, I understand everyone's got a different take on like the whole mask thing and like where we're at with that and stuff like that. I'm just going to tell you that it's not normal, and it's not normal in human behavior to go so long without touching one another. That's my hot take. Yeah. I'm a hugger. Yes. And I feel like I'm getting shamed for reaching out and exchange. Let me dab. Like, come on, man. Like, I'm sorry, but there's going to be negative effects. There's a lot of negative effects from COVID, but one from this mask wearing stuff. I'm going to come in hot and tell you, man, that like, it's not normal. And some of you are going to go back to your daily lives and practices and go, well, it's never going to be normal again. And you're not going to hug people because you're worried about germs, or you're worried about, like, give that up. Mm-hmm. Do you know that we release chemicals in our brain every time we hug and embrace someone, every time someone looks us in the eye? Like, we need that. We need a lot of things, but we need that. Stop focusing so much on being, a germ expert and just at some point, man, whenever the CDC or the government or whatever you feel comfortable, do it on your own time. But let me just say, don't give up on love, and don't give up on physical touch. It's very important. And I think that's a fear I have right now, that, there's some things that we're just going to try to accept. And I'm going to hit you with a double one on the way out too. Don't fall for the belief that Zoom is the same as in person. Because I'm feeling this connection right here. But if you and I were in person, it would be stronger. You can't tell me it wouldn't be.
This would have been about 3 hours.
Man, I would say roll the tape. That tells me how old I am. Keep the tape going. They wouldn't have enough tape.
Yeah,
we'd go old school. But those are the two things I'm going to say, man. Like, in person still is needed. Don't do everything virtually. And the other thing is, like, hug someone. I can't even believe I'm having to come in hot with that.
Hey.
Only after COVID. But like, don't be afraid to hug someone. Don't be afraid to brace someone. Like, man, I'm worried about everyone. And if you're worried about that, man, I get it. And that's the other side, is like, I have compassion. We all have different fears and reactions to what we've been through. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, don't settle for that, because you'll be blocking something that you need. It's a basic human need to need some level of affection and human interaction and touch.
That was hot. That was sizzling.
I might get canceled for it, but appreciate you.
Might get canceled for it.
Yeah, probably.
There's not that many people that listen.
Hey, whoever they are, they'll cancel me for it.
Might go viral on this one. Hey, Doc, go ahead and plug everything you need to plug, your social, your website, anything right now, buddy.
Yeah, man. Instagram, Dr Mondo, DrMondo. That's the main spot that I usually am on. You could also check out my podcast. It's on Spotify, iTunes. It's called Level Up with Dr Mondo, where we talk to athletes and we talk to musicians, entertainers. It's a short 15-minute podcast that just basically tells the untold stories of mental health struggles. And then you can check out more about Cheat Code at Cheat Code, like video game cheat, CHEAT, code, CODE. And we also have more information about the foundation, which is thecheatcode.org. And those are the places you can find out more about us.
I love it, man. And Doc, thank you so much for coming through.
Can't wait to meet in person, man.
Hey, for sure, man. This, hit
me with your number on the side. So I know
you all around. So, whenever you back in Sac,
we'll make time.
Yeah.
This has been great, man. I feel like I've known you for a long time.
Exactly.
Already. You know what I mean?
When I first came on here, I was like, oh, this guy from somewhere.
Well, now you know.
Sometimes you just,
I felt the same.
You just click.
There it is.
Hey, check me out at Nash and Proper, at Chef Cec on IG. You could come and get those delicious hot chicken sandwiches. Just look us up at www.nashandproper.com. Hey, for Dr. Armando González, my name is Chef Cec. We just came in hot. See you next week. Love you. Peace.